Hello book friends, it's Alyssa. Welcome back to the channel. Hello if you are new. I just finished a rant video about this terrible book about Mr. Darcy, and I am I had some wine. So let's talk about Pride and Prejudice. It is my next installment of my year with Austen. I'm trying to figure out if I put this rant review in with that. I know that I talked about some things together last month, or last installment. In this installment, let's talk about Pride and Prejudice. The book we probably all know and love the most, or at least know the most, or have the most Jane Austen exposure is probably Pride and Prejudice. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'm gonna put the wine down. In case you missed my last installment of my year with Austen, I am spending the year reading the major works of Jane Austen with Dickens and Docs over on Instagram. They've put together a little group and a little reading schedule, and we read Pride and Prejudice for March and April, and next month we will start Northanger, not Mansfield. So I have time on Mansfield. The last video was on Sense and Sensibility, and I said that while I'm doing this, I'm going to also be reading some nonfiction, some other book that sort of ties in to Jane Austen, her life, her works, etc., etc. And I read a really wonderful book along with Sense and Sensibility, but this time I read this, The Darcy Myth by Rachel Fader. And this was, or Fader, however you say her name, this book was terrible. This was abysmal. There's a whole rant video. It's going to be very long. I don't know when it's going to come out in relation to this, but I will link it in the description whenever it does, whether it's before or after. So if you want to see me rant about that, if you've seen that around, it came out this year and it was abysmal in my humble opinion, as somebody who has read Jane Austen a bunch, has read Pride and Prejudice a bunch, and has seen probably every adaptation of Pride and Prejudice that I can get my little grubby hands on. I hated it. I don't think the author fundamentally understands the story of Pride and Prejudice or the dynamics between the characters, and it's terrible. That's your TLDR. Anyway, that's not the point of this. The point of this is to talk about Pride and Prejudice, which holding this up is not going to help you, but this is the bind up of her complete novels that I am working through this year. So these go, I think, in like publication order in the text. I think we're doing it in writing order of when they started. If she started stuff, I think is when she started them, because Northanger Abbey was published posthumously. But anyway, so Pride and Prejudice, if you've never read Pride and Prejudice, is the story of Lizzie Bennett and her four sisters who have no brother to speak of, and their house and lands will be entailed away on the death of their father. So it is very important that her very anxious mother finds them husbands, and the best husbands that she can find for them to marry. Mostly so they're not destitute, because how do you take care of 5 daughters when women can't work? Eventually this man, Mr. Bingley, moves into the neighborhood they live in. He rents out this giant home, and that sets into motion all of this courting and wooing and all kinds of Jane Austen-y things. Lizzie is sort of paired up with the prideful, proud, sort of aloof, standoffish Mr. Darcy, and Jane and Mr. Bingley, who's like an overeager puppy dog, fall in love. Things come between them. There's tension and issues and all the fun things that we know from Jane Austen. This is probably one of the most well-known Austens, I believe. I think this is probably the one that has the most adaptations. I've been struggling to figure out what I'm even going to film for this little installment, simply because I feel like everything that needs to be said on Pride and Prejudice has been said, and everything I want to say is probably in this rant review. But I wanted to make the video just to have something, a placeholder here, to just say how well Pride and Prejudice holds up over time. I have read Pride and Prejudice, I don't even know how many times. I obviously have seen many, many, many adaptations many, many, many times. It's a story that I know so, so well. And it's a story that I never tire of. I love the dynamic between Lizzie and Darcy in the sense that this is a story where, you know, they don't understand each other at first, and then they both at different times and at different paces learn to understand the other one and see the other's faults, but also their strengths and the reasons why they would make a wonderful partner, and they grow and learn to love each other. I think that this time around, I really it really struck home how strong Lizzie's character arc and her growth is in this story. She starts off as like a very mature woman, but that kind of young adolescent maturity where you know enough, but you don't really know that much. So you have this semi misplaced confidence in your own understanding of reality. And Lizzie has that reality and that confidence challenged throughout the like middle sections of this novel, and she has to come to terms in the latter parts of this with all the things and the misconceptions and her own misunderstandings of the world. She has to come to grips with all of that, and she realizes kind of how wrong she was about certain things. She changes her mind on certain things. And it's not just Mr. Darcy. I mean, she is very upset about Charlotte marrying Mr. Collins. And I'm sorry, if you've never read Pride and Prejudice, I'm going to suggest that you at least watch a movie so that you can watch this discussion, because otherwise I'm just going to be spoiling everything and or it's not going to make any sense. Carrying on. But she's very upset for like from the moment she finds out that Charlotte Lucas is marrying Mr. Collins. She's very upset. And it's not because, oh, she's marrying Mr. Collins and I'm not, and like how dare he move on to her. No, she's like, she's making the dumbest mistake of her life. And in reality, you know, like Charlotte's actually probably the smartest person in this book, and Charlotte plays the game and she understands what she needs to do to ensure her own safety as a woman in this time, to secure her own, is a terribly worded sentence, secure her own security, to find her own security in life. She finds the least defensive man she can, who is willing to marry her and give her a very good situation in life that she can manipulate to continue to have a very good situation in life. And she's also the wisest person in this friend group. I mean, she can see things that Lizzie can't. She's a little older than everybody else. And she, you know, she can see that George Wickham isn't maybe the best person in the world. Maybe she doesn't know everything about him, but she's like, it's a little suspicious that this man just comes into town and starts very openly telling all these things about his life and shitting on Mr. Darcy. And like, that's kind of weird, especially in Regency England. Like, why would you just start saying all this? Like, what is his ulterior motive? There's got to be a little bit more behind this guy. And everyone kind of ignores her, right? And she can see that Mr. Darcy might just be into Lizzie. And Lizzie's like, absolutely not. I don't know why this man keeps trying to like get me on the dance floor. It's because he's into you, Lizzie. Like, I know that you had like a bad first impression, but he's realized that you're actually kind of interesting and smart and pretty, and like he kind of likes that you're not a sycophant like Lady Caroline, or whatever her name's not Lady Caroline. I made her a lady. She would love that. But like, she's not like Caroline Bingley, who's like just constantly sucking up to him and constantly trying to throw herself in his way and get his attention. He likes that Lizzie doesn't like him. He likes that Lizzie challenges him. He likes that she's not afraid to speak her mind. And in a world where pretty much everybody is afraid to speak their mind to you, it can be refreshing to have somebody who isn't intimidated by you, who will throw down with you verbally, maybe not fighting, but like will like verbally spar with you, who will challenge you, who will call you out on some bullshit, who will challenge you as a human being. I feel like I've said challenge like 6 times, but I do enjoy, and I always enjoy that development of their relationship where like even Lizzie doesn't realize what's happening because she really is so young. She isn't as old as Charlotte in this book. She's in her like very young in her 20s. I feel like she's like 21 maybe. I'll have to look it up. I can't recall. I know she says it when she is at Rosings, but you know, she's in her early 20s. She's quite young. She's quite isolated in the world. These are not women that go to the London season or go to Bath or go any. These Lizzie and Jane and everybody, they are so restricted to home. They don't leave Meryton. They don't have any experience of the outside world. They're incredibly naive women. So even though like Lizzie is well read and she has the respect of her father and she is sort of ballsy and challenging, she is still a very isolated human being. And the fact that in this backwater, Darcy can walk in and meet this woman who just puts him on his guard in some way and in a way that's intriguing is lovely. I love this relationship between them. And I also love how like absolutely awkward Darcy is. He's so awkward. Like, he is only comfortable and natural in his own environment. He's slightly comfortable when they're at Netherfield and he starts to kind of open up a bit, but he's only really truly like in his stride as himself at Pemberley. And like the fact that he can't like read a room, and he can't understand that some of his behavior is just absolutely preposterous and inappropriate. Like, he just reads as a very socially awkward human being to me, despite Rachel Fetter's attempts to make him a monster. He's not a monster. They just both have a lot of growth that they have to do on their own that have nothing to do with the other one, so that then they can come and realize that they actually are a good pair for each other. And I enjoy that development in the characters. I also really loved in this go around looking at Mr. Bennett a little bit more closely, because I feel like, and this came from listening to the Thing About Austen podcast, I think that they kind of put this little earworm in my head of Mr. Bennett isn't the best father. And I think that I kind of saw it, but I was so distracted by Mrs. Bennett and her histrionics that I didn't quite pick up on his faults as a father and just how little he does to protect his own family, to maintain their station in life, to do anything really for them other than to just kind of be annoyed with the silliness of the women in his house and hide in his library. And yes, he does respect Lizzie and Jane, but then after that, the rest of his daughters, he pretty much just wants to put his head in the sand and ignore. And I can understand that, because Mary is a lot and Kitty and Lydia are insufferable, but they're still your children and you should be shaping them. You should be guiding them. You should be providing protection for them as parents, both of you. And clearly Mrs. Bennett can only do so much. And in this world, the real head of the household is the husband. I feel like Mr. Bennett has come down many rungs in my opinion of him over the years. The fact that he may or may not have been able to have fixed this entail. I mean, maybe it never would have happened, and we don't really know. There's a lot of like speculation around that as readers, but the point is that it's clear that he's never done anything. He's never tried to do anything to make anything better. He literally just hides in his library. And if there ever was the chance that he could have maybe done anything to secure the future of his daughters and his family outside of making a male heir, he was never inclined to do it. And I think it's also clear that he very much regrets that marriage with Mrs. Bennett. That is a marriage of beauty and not sense. He definitely married out of attraction, simply, kind of like Lydia and Wickham. And there is kind of this moral about you can't just be attracted to somebody. There needs to be more. And I think that shows up a lot in Austen novels, that just because somebody's attractive, or just because you relate to them, or like attraction, just because you are physically attracted to another human being, just because you might be able to very easily fall in love with somebody, does not mean that they are the right husband, partner, person to enter into a legally binding agreement with, where all of your rights get taken away because you are a woman, and once you are married to a man, basically you are his property because it's Regency England. The moral is sort of like, don't just do that. Like, yes, we all need to get married, but like, make the best choice. Because at first, Lizzie understands the difference between marrying for money and marrying for happiness, right? So she knows, or she feels from the get-go, that she could ever be happy with Darcy, despite the fact that he has so much money. And even her parents are like, I know he has a lot of money, but forget him, right? And I'm sure if they found out that she had said no to his first proposal, that they would have been livid, especially Mrs. Bennett. But thankfully, she doesn't find out. But Lizzie has enough understanding and enough sense, and has gleaned enough from watching her own parents to know that it's not just about having a physical attraction or a romantic attraction to somebody. You need to have more than that. And you see that, I think, a lot in Austen, that there is more to the relationship that you need to have to then decide to bind yourself into this legal agreement with another human being, and to give up your rights and your freedom to another human being. And perhaps that's why Austen never really gets married. She has a few engagements that she reneges on, but maybe that's why she never gets married. Maybe that's why, maybe she's never found that Mr. Darcy, she never found the Wentworth. She never found the person that she was comfortable giving everything up to, and and knew that she would still remain happy in some sense, that she was confident in giving up that personal power too. I don't know. That's speculation. That's just me having a moment here with some wine, thinking about Jane Austen. For every read of Pride and Prejudice, I pick up on something new, some little new dynamic. It's glorious. I just love Pride and Prejudice. I love this whole experience of reading Jane Austen. Every couple months, I get to read a Jane Austen novel and come here and talk to you guys about it, because they're just wonderful. And there's so much that we can break down and talk about. And there's so much more we could discuss. And I mean, I could be here for like another hour, not ranting, but raving about a book, but I don't have it in me to do that because it is 12:30 at night right now. But I really love this. I'm very excited to get into Northanger because I think Northanger is very, very, very fun. And I love Lizzie and Darcy. I do think that like Jane and Bingley, I have the least faith in their ability to be happy as a couple, because Bingley is just such a wet noodle. Like he doesn't have any backbone, you know, like he's got nothing. Like Darcy insinuates that maybe Jane's not that into you and he just leaves. You want to marry that man? Like, I wouldn't marry that man. That man is not confident in his own decisions, right? Like, he's so wishy-washy. He's so influenced by his friends, and I don't know if I would marry that man. Like, I think Bingley's lovely. Like, you can't, it's like kicking a puppy saying something mean to him, but like, I just don't think you can marry him. He's so, I mean, I guess he wouldn't do anything awful to you if you marry him, but I need someone with a little bit more chutzpah, you know? I don't really know what this video is other than me spending 20 odd minutes just kind of gushing about Pride and Prejudice and telling you that I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed it yet again. I've watched a few more of the adaptations. I will still say that the one from the 90s, the long Colin Firth version, is my favorite, seconded by the one previous to that in like the late 80s from the BBC. That is my OG Mr. Darcy. That is the Mr. Darcy that taught me about Mr. Darcy. And now he's like bald. Like I saw him like older and like outside of his role of Mr. Darcy as like a regular older adult. And I was like, you're bald? Mr. Darcy got bald? It was weird. Colin Firth at least didn't go bald. And I do think that like the 2000s version is beautiful cinematically. I love the score. It's vibes. It's like Pride and Prejudice vibes, but I need more true to the canonical text.
What a superbly featured room, and what excellent boiled potatoes.
So if you have read Pride and Prejudice, I would love to hear all your thoughts down below. Tell me your favorite Pride and Prejudice adaptation, I guess. Look out for that rant review if you care to watch me go a little bit crazy, and if you want to also be annoyed if Pride and Prejudice is something that you love, because that will be in the description. It's very long. I don't know when I'm going to edit it. Frankly, I don't know when I'm going to edit this. But anyway, next up is Northanger Abbey. And I think in tandem with Northanger, I'm going to read maybe The Mysteries of Udolpho. I do have a copy, and I'm curious to see if I can even follow it. The Thing About Austen podcast talked about maybe finding something to read along with it, like almost like a Spark Notes summary, kind of like a helper guide, because it is a little bit, I guess there's some things that are kind of lost, not in translation, but in time translation to time, I guess is the way I want to say that. But I think that's what I might do. I am, after this Darcy myth thing, I need a little break from Jane Austen nonfiction, because that just sent me reeling. So perhaps I will read The Mysteries of Udolpho along with Northanger. I think that would be really fun, because if you don't know, that is a book that plays very heavily into the text of Northanger. Our main character, Catherine Morland, is reading The Mysteries of Udolpho at the start of this novel, and it colors the way that she sees her world. Anyway, I read about like the first 3/4 of it a very long time ago, and I do not recall any of it. So I think I will do a restart and see if I can even get through with it. So stay tuned to that for the next installment of my year with Austen. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying this little journey, and I did start a weekly newsletter, so if you want to see what I'm reading every week and what I finished and just basic thoughts, things like that, you can subscribe to the newsletter in the description box below. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Bye.